Sunday, July 20, 2025. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Weekend Show, where we make the time to consider the news of the week. You can support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5 Minute News. Our guest today is a researcher and journalist, content activist and political commentator who is running as a Democrat for the United States House of Representatives in Illinois' 9th Congressional District. Kat Abughazaleh, welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, the Epstein files. No, I'm joking. we don't have to do that. I'm sure that's all taken care of itself. But maybe my first question to you is why? I think that's probably a question you get a lot. Maybe you can dig out an answer for me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Epstein files. I was at a candidate forum last night, and before I even started talking, I was like, just so y'all know, after I'm done talking, go to the Wall Street Journal's website.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a researcher and journalist who covered the far right. Fox News, Tucker Carlson was my specialty, and then into weird right-wing rabbit holes. And I started making these video explainers about what I was seeing during my work hours, because that's where a lot of people get their information now. And they kind of just took off. And all of the people I and my colleagues covered now run our government. And I don't think Democratic leadership is doing enough to stand up to them. And it's both kind of a fundamental misunderstanding of the digital age and modern communication, but also a lack of knowledge about the far right, from conspiracy theories to bad faith arguments. And I think we need people in DC who know about that. Not only know about that, but have a track record.
It's so interesting that you talk about bad faith arguments, because as I see it, coming from Europe, or formerly Europe, I see it's like everyone's living a bit of a lie here in terms of the Republicans. There's so much conspiracy. There is so much false information. There's that right-wing ecosphere. There's Fox News. There's that entire movement, not to mention QAnon and everything else. I mean, it's a lot to take on. They do not exist in a space of truth. And consequently, so much of the policies that they bring about, if any, they don't actually benefit kind of average Americans, including those voting for Donald Trump or the Republican Party. I mean, does that kind of upset you as much as it does me?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up Republican. That's the thing. We were very much a Reagan Republican household. My grandmother was very involved in Texas Republican politics. And so I grew up in this orb of misinformation. And the thing about ignorance is the effects are so negative, but its existence is completely value neutral. You don't know what you don't know. And how are you supposed to find those things if you don't know they exist? And people like Rupert Murdoch spend billions of dollars every year to keep people in that bubble. The fact of the matter is there will always be shitty people, but the vast majority of folks want a safe, happy, thriving life for them and their loved ones. And so it's a lot about getting that puncture in. And with Trump, a lot of it is our entire system, especially in the United States, is built around making sure people's material needs aren't met. People are hungry, they're tired, and it keeps people pitted against each other rather than seeing, folks like Elon Musk at the top taking advantage of us. And so that's where misinformation comes in. Extremism and apathy thrive when material needs aren't met.
What's interesting, though, is that there's a kind of double standard also. And the example on Friday, Trump's threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal, which is a Rupert Murdoch newspaper. And so for those people who are not kind of deeply understanding of how all of this stuff works, they'll go, well, Murdoch and Trump are enemies, because of this moment where Trump is, threatening to sue, which is what he does. He threatens to sue. Yeah. Whether he does or not is always another question. And Murdoch obviously has been responsible for much of Donald Trump's rise. So you see what I mean about this contradiction? It is complicated unless you are a deep critical thinker about politics.
Yeah, when I started my job, I thought I knew a lot about Fox News. I used to have a comedy set about the Five in college. And I grew up in Texas as a Republican. But then I realized that there is so much lore that you just don't know unless you watch it every day from a recliner in your living room all day, or you're getting paid to watch it. And the name of the game is cognitive dissonance, having two different ideas in your head that are directly conflicting, but somehow making them work. And the thing is, rich, bad people gravitate towards each other. That's why when, Elon Musk and Trump were having their feud or whatever last month, I was saying, he's going to be back in the White House in a couple of weeks. Like, don't.
They're very forgiving, aren't they?
They're
because
very forgiving.
The money is, and the power is almost too much to ignore.
Right. Like, they're, you know, middle school girls that can't, middle school boys even, that can't, you know, keep track of how they feel. They can't regulate their emotions, but they also have similar goals, and that's to enrich themselves. And that's why Elon Musk's Nazi bot, which was literally calling itself Mecha Hitler like a week ago, is getting a $200 million contract from the Defense Department. And we have to have an attention span, especially our leaders have an attention span that is longer than just like what happened 5 minutes ago. You have to build up this knowledge and lean on it to recognize the patterns that are happening. And when conspiracy theories are being sown and not moving to the right, when conspiracy theories are the backing of that.
Tell me about your district and what the kind of landscape is there. What are you up against, and what is your plan locally?
Yeah, so I was the first one out of the gate. I launched March 24th. The current incumbent is Representative Jan Schakowsky, and I've been very open that this isn't like a vendetta against her. She has been one of the most progressive members of Congress. Of course, there are a few votes in the last few years I would have done differently, but she has generally been on the forefront of progressive change. This is about the party for me and about where our government is at. If we didn't have an overt fascist in office and someone who personally like deposed me as our shadow president, Elon Musk, I'm not sure I would be running in the first place. I didn't plan to do this. But the district is really cool. So it starts in uptown Chicago, and then it goes up to Evanston, and it goes along these northern suburbs. But because of redistricting and the need to gerrymander in response to Republicans, it goes all the way out to McHenry County, which is the only county that has voted Trump in the last 3 elections in the Chicagoland area. It is about 27% people born in foreign countries. You have Northwestern and Loyola, so about 50,000 college students that are actively studying in the district, as well as tons of students from commuter schools, tons of transplants, people from red states like me that are moving there because they know it's safe. And it's, you know, Evanston was the first, and I think only still, city in the country to issue reparations to Black residents. There are so many mutual aid groups that we've been working with on the campaign. This is a district that is very knowledgeable. When you go to neighborhood meetings, it's not just the same 5 people over and over again. It's a packed room. It's a district that's very politically involved, and it's a district that is being abused by Trump, from ICE raids to Northwestern's funding being cut by $800 million. This district is in the sights of the administration.
It must be serious if you, as a progressive Democratic candidate, want to take on a progressive Democratic incumbent. I mean, things the status quo must be problematic, and we know about that from the Democratic Party in terms of central leadership, that there is this kind of vacuum. Just tell me how you feel about the party and why you feel that interrupting the kind of the current lawmaker there would be helpful in this moment.
Well, Representative Schakowsky has announced that she will not be seeking re-election. When I was the only candidate to launch my campaign before that announcement. And to her credit, she said, you know, bring it on. Like, competitive primaries are good for democracy. But a lot of people in the Democratic Party wouldn't say that. Yeah. I had people that felt like personally offended that I would launch in the first place, launch this campaign. And I think that we need to be having these conversations in especially deep blue districts, because it allows us to have diversity of arguments, of tactics. And now the field has like 15 people in it. I've offered people that if they want to run against me, I'll help them with their FEC paperwork to get set up, because I think this is important. If you truly consider yourself the best candidate, what are you worried about? And like setting up this campaign, when I told people, like, you know, for campaign infrastructure, telling folks that like, yeah, there's an incumbent, I'm not sure if she'll run again. They would literally hang up the phone because they don't want to essentially be blacklisted from other political jobs in the future. Wow. And that is not a healthy party. This was a huge issue in 2024, the lack of competitive primary. That's the reason that Joe Biden wasn't the nominee. But even with Kamala Harris, like, we knew there wasn't a primary, and that didn't sit right with a lot of people, and understandably so. I think that, especially with myself, I have a big platform that I built myself, but it's still such a privilege to start a campaign with. And being able to run this campaign the way I want and create a permission structure for others to do the same is really important to me.
So why are you the best candidate?
I have a track record of fighting the far right, first off. I have gone toe-to-toe with people like Tucker Carlson, Stephen Miller, Elon Musk. I know who these people are. I know how they think, and I know how to beat them. And Illinois does so many things right. That's why people are moving here, like I said, because they know it's safe. At the same time, they don't have to deal with these people regularly because they are doing things right, because they are supporting their residents. And we need people in DC that know how to fight the far right. But I also have a vision past Trump, and it's not just like the status quo. I'm not sure if you've heard, but that's not going great for a lot of us. My biggest issue is what I call basic existence, the radical idea that we should be able to afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over. And trying to frame this not even as like a progressive issue, but this is where the center should be, is really important to me. Like if you tried to pitch the idea of Social Security or public libraries today, Republicans and like maybe even some Democrats would call you radical. And this is not a radical idea that we should be able to like thrive and not just survive. But also I think that people are disillusioned with the party. I have a track record of being an excellent communicator, but also I am trying to do politics differently. And that means using our resources to help people right now. I think that a lot of people are disillusioned with politics, that they don't vote, not necessarily because like they hate their country or anything, but because they feel like their votes don't matter because they haven't gotten anything out of it. And so we're trying to show, not tell. So like for our first event, instead of charging $1,000 a plate, we asked people to bring a box of pads or tampons, which were donated to Chicago's Period Collective. Right now, my volunteers are out cleaning a park. We have been partnering with local organizations to support them. All of our events are accessible. Like even when we have tiers that you can donate to attend, we also say, if you can't afford that, donate what you can and we'll get you in there, because we think it's really important to not put political representation behind a paywall. And even our campaign office doubles as a mutual aid hub. So we have clothed and fed at this point over 100 people since we were able to put up these shelves just a few weeks ago. People that just come in and get what they need, no questions asked. So we're about showing, not telling, and keeping things as accessible as possible.
And that is a kind of consistent theme with being pro-democracy and being liberal-minded and progressive, is that there is room for everybody. And I suppose
there should be.
Kind of showing that difference, that whereas with the MAGA Republicans, as they have evolved from the party of Reagan to whatever this new cult is, that there isn't room for anybody who does not play ball. And we've seen that with the relationship between Trump and the Speaker of the House and the Attorney General. I mean, anybody he has around him, they are 100% committed to the Führer and nothing else. And maybe this has been part of the problem with the communications, because Democrats, have been less good at communicating. Republicans seem to have the edge when it comes to messaging, because their messaging is much shorter and simpler. It's things like build the wall and lock her up. How do you go about communicating with your skills, this kind of vast range of thoughts and ideas that are kind of progressive, liberal-minded thinkers?
Yeah, so, it's about, like, Republicans are playing messaging on easy mode. They're hacking your fear center, and fear is the quickest route to compelling any human to do anything. And that's why it is really important to hold ourselves to a higher standard, not necessarily when they go low, we go high, but saying we can't just be going along with what Republicans say, and we need to make sure that our representatives are held accountable, because it's really important, especially in a system like we have right now, where right now there are only two major parties, making sure that this party isn't moving to the right, isn't throwing vulnerable people under the bus, but also is communicating effectively. And that's all about your audience. I have de-radicalized thousands of people with my work. And a big part of that is, saying things that are true, not necessarily just throwing every person that's ever voted for Trump under the bus, in not just like in a we need to cater to them way, but in a way that understands where ignorance comes from, like what we were talking about before. And so like I did this video about the Charlottesville hoax, which Greg Gutfeld was talking about how Trump didn't praise Nazis at Charlottesville. And so I did this whole video where I said at the beginning, if you're a conservative watching this, just watch the whole thing through, and then you can call me whatever name you want to call me after. I will welcome it. And I went through the entire press conference and I didn't cut a second out, but I, cut between it saying, this is the context for this is the context for that. And almost every comment by a Trump supporter in that video is saying either, I watched this thinking that you would be wrong and you're not, and now I'm kind of questioning my beliefs, or, you're not wrong. I still like Trump, but you're not wrong on this. And that's the thing. It was talking about what was happening, also infusing like some communicating the way I want to be communicated to. Like when I talk on my videos, I write my scripts out loud. So I'm typing and speaking out loud. I think that a lot of Democratic messaging very clearly has been through like a half dozen consultants before it makes it to anyone's ears. And people are craving connection, especially after COVID. Everyone is so isolated. And so it's really important to talk like a normal person, but also make sure that when you're talking about things, it's not necessarily tribalism, but you're standing by your beliefs. We have actually Republicans in my district that are like, I don't know if I agree with everything you say, but I do think you're a fighter, and I do think that you believe what you say. And so now I'm curious. And that's the thing, is like Trump listened to people and provided a solution. That solution is dog shit, but when people are scared, they want one. And in 2024, there was like a lot of gaslighting of like, well, the stock market's great, so your economic situation is also great. That's not what people want to hear. And it's also not good representation. Meet people where they are, but stand by your beliefs. People don't want a two-faced politician.
And bring receipts, because that's really the difference, isn't it? You were
Always
able to show
receipts.
the video in full, and people were able to because that's the thing, you can't really dictate to these people. You have to let them come to the decision by themselves. And if they see the video, then they can kind of make an informed choice based on that. And we can't expect people to come all the way back from the brink, but they can come close enough to shake hands and go, something, I was wrong. And it's
right.
Not all or nothing. Two things can be true.
Right, exactly. It's about treating people with respect, but you don't have to justify your existence to anyone. If anyone is saying, well, like trans people should be executed, that is a non-starter. You just don't, there's no arguing with that. That is basic dignity. But there are a lot of people that are misinformed. That's why like the best way to fight transphobia is like meeting a trans person for the first time. And with me, like I grew up Republican, and the thing, you just need that like one puncture to kind of make you start questioning things. And for me, it was, we moved to Tucson, Arizona, which is far less segregated by income than Dallas, Texas is. And I had friends that were smarter and more talented than I was, that even with a full ride couldn't go to college because they either had to help support their families, or there were, the extra costs associated with education. And I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why can't you go to college when like you should be a doctor? You would be an incredible doctor. And it made me think like, was Ronald Reagan not right about everything? And at that point, Trump was coming on the scene, and my parents and I all were like, no, thank you. We were like desperately clinging to Marco Rubio, being like, maybe he's, the Republican we want to see. But by the end of it, like they voted for Hillary. I couldn't vote, but like I canvassed and held a voter registration drive. And it's just, you just need that puncture. And meeting people's material needs is a great way to do that. Like when Democrats want to put $20 million towards some Joe Rogan made in a lab, you should be putting that money instead towards actual material benefits. Someone loses their job because of all of these Doge cuts, say we'll help you find another one. You lose your health care because of Medicaid. Democratic coffers, and Republican coffers for that matter, are so deep, fund their local clinic. They can't afford groceries, stock their local food bank. I promise you, by the time that election season comes around, they will remember that.
It's a very interesting place to come from because A, it is authentic and important, and B, it kind of deals with some of the issues that you rightly say Democrats have ignored. I mean, for all of the Doge cuts and for all of the kind of people that had took early retirement and all of this, I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of people. What is happening to those people? Where are they? What is their politics? And for Democrats to give those people a soft place to land is really a very smart move. And I haven't really heard it from anybody apart from you.
It's insane to me. And like with my campaign, I've been trying to show like you should do good things because they're good things to do, but also for like the most cynical, power focused consultants or whatever. Like, hey, do good thing and people are more motivated by your message. Like, if that's what it takes to get you there, sure. It seems like a slam dunk to me. I mean, it is in my race. We're polling second, and I was considered the long shot candidate in March. We have, tens of thousands of donors, and our average donation is just $32. And that's because people are moved by someone actually trying to do something. And it makes sense that people feel apathetic. But like, as we saw with Zoran's win in New York, give them something to vote for.
You mentioned political consultants a couple of times. I'm interested to talk about this because, again, it's a kind of sector that most people don't really know much about. These people exist in the shadows. They wield huge amounts of power. And I speak as someone who was a political consultant in the UK. The differential was that I never charged for my services. I always provided everything for free. And so, to me, that's the differential, like wanting to do the right thing and support candidates that maybe need a little bit of extra help, especially when it comes to the media. So, you coming to this on your own, tell me about, your experience of how maybe the Democrats have got lost because they've overpaid for the wrong advice.
Yeah, this is one of these things where consultant is such a vague term, but it's one that people have probably heard a lot. And there was this moment in Kamala Harris's campaign where it felt like, oh, maybe she'll be a change candidate. And then a bunch of people that worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign that, as we know, didn't go great, came on. And it's a lot of people that have been in these circles for a long time that are getting jobs for their friends, that are charging an egregious amount of money for shitty advice. Not every consultant is bad. I mean, we have 2 on my campaign that helped us get set up. But the difference is for them, they don't charge a cent until they're helping us with some ads later. And so that's when they'll get paid, but it's for a very specific service with very outlined goals. And that makes sense to me. But just being on a payroll to say that you should, thank ICE agents for their work or to connect you with another rich person, that's how a lot of our politics works right now. And, during 2024, I was one of the credentialed creators at the DNC. And I had someone ask me, because my brand has kind of been associated with authenticity, which is such an overused word in the digital space. They were like, how do we make authenticity? Sir, you are fundamentally misunderstanding the thing you were trying to achieve.
It's so funny.
It's crazy. Yeah. And it's this idea that everything can be thought through. Everything can be House of Cards did, I don't even know how to turn that into a verb. But I feel like, especially political TV shows, have kind of rotted our brain. And sometimes it's just the answer is simple. It's help people, talk to them like they're normal, and stand by what you believe. And the fact that there are so many folks that are working from an outdated playbook, Trump ripped the old playbook in 2015. He stomped on it and he threw it in the trash. We are in a different time now, and you can't keep acting like it's still 2012.
Let's talk about that, because this is really important, isn't it? The idea that democratic canvassing from the grassroots, from door knocking, right the way through to TV ads and campaigns, it does. To me, it kind of screams the 90s. And, the world is so unrecognizable from those times, not least our clothes or our iPads, but everything else, just the way that we communicate. And so because the Democratic Party does have feet in a kind of traditional quicksand, and we even see this with Hakeem Jeffries to a certain extent. He's kind of Nancy Pelosi light. He wears a light shoe with a dark suit. I suppose that's him kind of modernizing. But, Chuck Schumer is another perfect example of somebody where it's, no disrespect to him, but it is time to hand the baton to younger people, and ideally, in my opinion, female, because, the men have not done a great job of this up until this point. And some strong, smart women might be the solution, in my view, to the future of the party.
I mean, look, you said it. I think that also there's an issue here. The average age of Congress is 58. The average American is 38. Half of Congress are worth at least $1 million. And a lot of people go into politics and might still even have good intentions. but it is difficult to legislate on ideas when they are abstract to you. And for instance, like a lot of members of Congress, I would say the vast majority of them never went through school shooting drills. They haven't had to worry about out-of-pocket medical costs in decades. They probably have owned their home for those same decades. Rent is so high right now. I just got health insurance after being laid off because of Elon Musk's lawsuit last year. Like, I got my health insurance 2 weeks ago once my partner had re-enrollment. These are things that are not abstract. They are very concrete, and it is difficult to legislate on the minimum wage when you've never held a service industry job in your life. It's one of these things that, like, yeah, we do need lawyers. We do need, state politicians in DC. Absolutely. But we need all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of ages, like diversity, not just of race and gender and sexuality, but also of experience. We need teachers. We need labor leaders. We need reporters. We need people that represent America. And some of that is lawyers. Some of that is previously elected officials. But we need more than that.
Also identifying what America looks like. I mean, you alluded to that, but when you look at Congress, it is a sea of old white men invariably, and America does not look like that. I was in New York City for Pride a couple of weeks ago, and just visually, it was just so incredibly diverse and interesting. And, our own families, people try to compartmentalize, don't they? They say, if you're a Republican, you're kind of a, white male invariably and a little bit racist. but the reality is that our families are all so confused and so different, and they are black and white and straight and gay. And, it is not as simple as politics tries to make it. The other statistic I find most interesting is California saw more votes for Donald Trump than any other state. I mean, we have to start communicating that message to make people realize that it isn't about state warfare, that there are people of different stripes everywhere.
Also, this argument that, like with the floods in Texas, like I had tons of friends that went to the camp where all of those campers died. I used to go to Texas summer camps. One year that flooded so bad that we all just had to sit in the rec center on top of the hill because like the lifeguard chairs were underwater. And I heard some people say, well, I shouldn't have my tax dollars go to support them. We should, leave them in the dust. And here's the thing about red states. First off, people don't deserve to die. Like, that's just the case. There are also lots of vulnerable people in those states that can't leave. There are lots of people that have been exposed to that are just ignorant that can't leave. And once again, it's one of these things where exposure is really important. I used to camp out in Oklahoma all the time as a kid. I had no idea about like the story of Killers of the Flower Moon until I watched that movie. And like, that's one thing. How would I have known to look that up? And it's the case for a lot of these people in these states. But then also, gerrymandering is so essential to this. There are so many blue voters, liberal voters, people that are standing up for their rights, that are standing up to authoritarian regimes that are disenfranchised by how our election system works, which is why it's really important to have federal restrictions against gerrymandering. But it's even more important to remember that red states are not some monolith. There are plenty of good people there. I would say the vast majority are good people. Plenty of people in general that don't deserve to die because of misinformation and because of Trump's cuts. And when you forget that, you forget your humanity. And it's more important than ever that we keep remembering that.
How do you feel about Gavin Newsom's announcement that he might redraw maps in California if they're doing it in Texas and elsewhere? Do you think that that is a suitable route for Democrats to go low because they go low?
I mean, it's kind of necessary right now. I mentioned, the district, my district being redistricted in 2022, and that's because we lost a seat to Republicans. And unfortunately, it is necessary to redraw these maps to meet Republican corruption. That's why we need federal guidelines to restrict gerrymandering, because it is an issue on both sides, but only one side is the one that started it. And no one should have to live in a district that doesn't reflect them or where they feel like flyover country in the own place, like the place that they're supposed to be represented. But right now, Republicans are actively disenfranchising people, and it's more important than ever that we're able to put up an offense to that. Like there's, the paradox of tolerance, to be tolerant of everyone except the intolerant, because they'll stomp on you. They will, every time you try to go high when it comes to meeting, like trying to be the better person in this, it's not just you that faces the consequences. It's all of the people in those districts. It's all the people in that state. And so it's more important to remember the millions of lives that are at stake when you make these decisions. And I think, having fangs out when it comes to ICE raids, when it comes to millions of people losing their health care, when it comes to all of that shit in that murder bill, is incredibly important.
The value of life in America does seem to be a whole lot cheaper than in many other countries, certainly that I've lived and worked in. It does seem that there just doesn't seem to be that much value.
Yeah.
It's very odd and hard to describe. And I don't really know where it comes from. The Wild West, I guess,
It comes from the richest. That's truly where it is. I mean, if my partner and I want to start a family, I can't visit my own family because if there's a complication, I don't want to die. And there are so many people that are planning road trips around their pregnancy. There are so many people that are staying inside all day because they're worried because of the color of their skin that they'll be sent to a concentration camp. What the fuck are we doing here?
I read today or yesterday that the third biggest cause of death in the US was medical malpractice. And even that, I was like, why are Democrats not seizing on that? The fact that you pay all this money for healthcare and even then you're not guaranteed to live because of the profit motive with everything.
Universal healthcare costs less than our current system. We spend so much money trying to pad pharmaceutical companies' margins with their price gouging, and for all this bureaucratic work with insurance where CEOs make more than some bank CEOs. And in reality, universal healthcare is cheaper. It makes more financial sense for everyone except the richest. And it's one of these things where it's also it's not just having universal health care, it's making sure that people can study to be doctors. It's making sure that rural hospitals are opened back up. A lot of them have closed because of private hospitals and because of, consequences from the Dobbs decision. Ensuring that those people have health care and also that people are able to study medicine is extremely important.
This is a massive issue. And, the moment that I realized that there was a appetite for this was with the Luigi Mangione murder of the United Healthcare boss. It was a very weird time in the media because people didn't really know which side to take, and it was the first time I think people questioned their allegiance to humanity. But what it did do is it educated those of us who work in this sphere to think about the kind of transfer of information about this subject. Did it make you feel, as it did with me, make me think, hang on, this is something that needs to be worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a whole piece for Mother Jones about this where I talked a lot about how the response shouldn't be unexpected,
Yeah.
And it's something that united a lot of people on the left and right. I mean, I saw heavy duty MAGA people agreeing with communists in replies on social media. I mean, I'm narcoleptic. I have a chronic illness. Every month I have to get my medication. So I'm not the sleepiest girl in the world. And it's so as an uninsured person until 2 weeks ago, I've been using GoodRx as my insurance, which essentially gets you discounts at pharmacies. And I can look at the different pharmacies in my area and see that Walgreens would charge me $400 even with the coupon for my medication. But Julasco would charge $30. And when it comes to surgery, remember when that happened, I forget which insurance company it was, but they were saying that they would only have cover anesthesia for a certain amount of time, and they reversed that real quick.
Yeah.
It's one of these things again about experiences. Insurance CEOs people in Congress, like people with regular coverage and can afford expenses if you have cancer, if you have a chronic illness, if you just break your leg. To be able to call an ambulance is a luxury in this country. And they don't realize, when I was a bartender, we used to take fish antibiotics, like meant for fish when you were sick. That is a regular thing that people do. We don't have to live like this. Most countries don't. Most of our peer countries don't.
But it's the greatest country in the world, Kat. I mean, everybody knows that. It's the greatest
country in the world. That's why, we let Elon Musk get all of our money and everyone is an unpaid employee. Our tax dollars go to him. And just like his real employees, we can't unionize.
We have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk more about this. I also want to talk about the situation in the Middle East. You have Palestinian roots, so I'm sure you have something to say. We'll do that next here on The Weekend Show. When you start a podcast, it seems like you have to figure it out all by yourself. Scripts, setup, filming schedule, logos. It can be super overwhelming, and every day seems to introduce a new decision that needs an answer. When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can start to begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. And for millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. Accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/weekend. Go to shopify.com/weekend. Shopify.com/weekend. So you've tried melatonin, you've tried ASMR, you've tried breathing apps, adult coloring books, and that one overpriced face mask that just made things darker and sadder. Have you tried catching a buzz that doesn't end with a hangover and a $42 bar tab? But you still deserve an escape, absolutely, and that's where IndaCloud comes in. Gummies, flour, pre-rolls, all federally legal, seriously fun, and just a few clicks away. Whether you're chasing better sleep, deeper intimacy, or just solid daytime relief, this is grown-up cloud chasing done right. So, if you're 21 or older, now's your chance to float above the stress, because IndaCloud is giving all new customers 25% off their first order plus free shipping. Just use code WEEKEND or click the link in the show notes to claim your discount. That's indacloud.co, INDACLOUD.co. Use code WEEKEND for free shipping plus 25% off your first order. Order now, fill in their quick survey to support the show, and enjoy the best part of your week, brought to you by IndaCloud. We're back on The Weekend Show with Kat Abughazaleh. I'm Anthony Davis. Kat, your father was a Palestinian immigrant.
Yes.
Came to the US.
Yes.
And how has that affected your ability to campaign? Because I'm sure there are going to be people that will see you as a terrorist and a whole bunch of other things through their narrow field of view. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, you'll never believe this, but people are a lot more normal in real life than they are online. I've had someone ask me, well, what if someone won't vote for you because you're Palestinian? And I'm like, then they won't vote for me. Like, I can't change that about myself. This district does have it has a big Jewish population, and I've been making a real effort to talk, especially with Jewish constituents, about, their concerns, where they're at. I think it's one of these things where a lot of people that aren't Palestinian or Jewish or Israeli have a lot to say about how we should feel about the situation. And then just kind of ignore what we actually say. And like the fact of the matter is that Jewish people have been the greatest allies in the fight for Palestinian rights. Like they have consistently stood by us, fought for us, and advocated for our basic humanity. And our lives are intertwined. Like if one of us is suffering, the other one is as well. And the vast majority of people in general, but especially Palestinian and Jewish people, are horrified by what has been happening in Gaza. They don't want civilians killed in their name, just as I don't want elderly Jewish people set on fire like what happened in Colorado a couple months ago in mine. Our basic existence has been used as a proxy for others, for their own grievances, their own conspiracy theories, trying to radicalize others. And I've just made a real effort on making sure that, you know, my election isn't just about Israel and Palestine. It's about the 9th District, but also being very honest about where I stand. And that's that anyone who commits war crimes should be held accountable, and anyone that, like any weapons that are bought with our tax dollars, need to be subjected to our own laws.
It's a very difficult subject to broach because there kind of is no answer. That's kind of how I, approach it. I'm like, we're going to talk and we're going to argue and we're going to debate, but ultimately there will be no winner because, and it's like when Trump says, I'm going to solve the Middle East. He don't know the first thing about it, but he also ignores the fact that this struggle and this fight has been going on for decades. And so it requires a real investment in understanding the history, which again is something that this current administration is not really capable of. Just on Ukraine for a second, Trump has got round sending weapons now that he's not in love with Putin this week by saying that the Europeans can buy American weapons and they can send them. And then that kind of appeases his base, but still means that Ukraine are getting some of the support at least that they need. Do you think people are going to buy that? Or at the end of the day, is Trump still, Putin's BFF?
I think that he's very mercurial and we just don't know what he's going to be feeling next week. And as much as America loves interfering in a lot of, having our fingers in a lot of pies overseas, I do think that one of the most important things we can do is resisting authoritarian leaders like Putin. Like, this is never going to stop with Ukraine. It was never intended to stop with Ukraine. And that's why it's extremely important to keep supporting the Ukrainian people.
It's likely to get worse, though. I mean, my thinking is that within 3 to 5 years, the NATO countries will be at war with Russia. And I, at this moment in time, don't know who Trump would choose to side with.
Me neither. And that's kind of the problem, isn't it?
Scary, considering that, he jokes about World War III when he's in the Oval Office with Zelensky, but, the rest of us who are going to have to face the reality of a nuclear holocaust are having to really think where is safe and who are the goodies and who are the baddies in this fight. Yeah,
it's terrifying. There were some times in 2020 where Trump was pushing for essentially nuclear warfare. And I used to, this is when I was in college, and I'd text my mom and I'd be like, all right, if DC gets nuked, I'm going to be in the bottom of the Trader Joe's parking lot by my home because it was underground and I had a little kit. And it's that's insane that we even have to think about that.
Yeah.
And it's so scary having someone so unpredictable running our country and running it for his own profit and then falling for every authoritarian flattery scheme.
It is amazing, isn't it, that the European leaders have had to kind of put Trump back on track, explaining to him what D-Day means and things like that. But also the people around Trump are having to kind of remind him. Marco Rubio, I guess, has to do an awful lot of this. And even DeSantis has done this a couple of times where Trump has completely missed the point that he is being manipulated by by Vladimir Putin and Viktor Orban and any of these characters that Trump claims he has a friendship with because they take his phone calls. It is worrying because it's not just trying to be safe in the event of mainland war, but also we alluded earlier to the fact that immigrants are not leaving the house and not going to work for fear of being picked up by ICE. Trump has also already crossed the Rubicon by turning the US military on American citizens. This is the authoritarianism that you describe. This is the reality. We're not in threat of authoritarianism. We have already arrived. The dictatorship is pretty much complete, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is why it's so important for Democrats to put up opposition. I have made this argument, and I've heard from some, like, why do you keep, bagging on Democrats? And it's not about bagging on them. It's that you are the only opposition we have right now. It is more important than ever to not normalize it. We've seen in every authoritarian regime that they thrive when, especially in the early stages of consolidating power, the opposition does not put up an actual fight. And the thing is with fascists, they're weak. That's why they want people to think that they're strong with all these strongman tactics, trying to scare people, trying to terrify them into doing nothing. I was on MSNBC a couple of weeks ago, right when the first LA protests started, and someone asked me, well, should people be protesting? Because what if Trump escalates? And I was saying, escalate where? Where do we go from deploying our military against US citizens? And so it's really important when fascist regimes start to make sure that leaders are not normalizing it. They don't go after Nancy Pelosi and AOC first. They might in their rhetoric, but not in action. They deport 238 men to a concentration camp overseas without any real reason, without any due process. They attack people that are just walking home. They fire people from their jobs and make sure that they don't have health care, that they can't access SNAP benefits. This is what they do. And so it is so important to call their bluff. We saw this when Senator Van Hollen went down to El Salvador to get his constituent back home. They fold. When Elon Musk brought his army of teenage Nazis to the Treasury Department, every Democrat should have been arm in arm in front of every entrance and every exit and said, you're going to have to drag us away. And they would either have to risk a spectacle that would piss a lot of people off or back down. A lot of people have asked me, like, am I the crazy one here? Am I the crazy one for thinking this is all awful? And no, you're not. But that's why you need leaders to say that. You don't need compromise. Compromise is not getting your hand cut off and being grateful they left you your pinky. You need to stand for what you believe. You need to stand for people. And if you have any sort of influence, any power, any platform, you need to use that for good.
It's now or never, really, isn't it? I mean,
if not now, then when? Like, people were like, well, this isn't the right time to launch a primary challenge because the Democratic Party needs to be together. And I'm like, when would be a better time? When would that be? Right. Because I don't think it's ever. And truly, it is so comforting to think that there is some dream representative in every district that's going to come in and run for office. But guess what? That person is you. We are what we've got. Life is not a movie, and we have to fight while we can. Fascism is antithetical to the human condition. It never lasts, but we need to make sure the fewest number of people get hurt in the meantime.
People need leadership, though, don't they? There is this desire to be led.
That's how humanity works.
We are tribal by nature. I would have liked Kamala Harris, after she'd had a couple of weeks in Hawaii on vacation or wherever, to come straight back into it if she had the energy for it. Because if she didn't, drink a Red Bull. I mean, I wouldn't deny anybody a vacation after that schedule. But, the reality is people were waiting for her or somebody. Tim Walz did a bit of it, but, in this moment, in this power vacuum, Gavin Newsom has been pretty good, stepping up, presenting himself as a future presidential candidate. He certainly looks the part.
But he's still talking with people like Charlie Kirk, and that's a problem.
And I think maybe he would say he regrets that.
I hope so.
You're right in saying that they fold. I noticed the troops are being removed from California now. 5,000 troops were sent to California. Half of them are being withdrawn this week. with authoritarians, they, as you say, they push first and they'll see how far they can get. But, so much of this playbook is in the document of Project 2025, as Harris says. I can't believe they wrote this stuff down. And so this week we've seen CBS cancel The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I mean, that is really, all this stuff comes as no surprise to me. This was in the Project 2025 document. Yeah. Shutting down all popular culture, the arts. This is part of their process. How did you feel when you heard that? Because, there are darker forces at work here, aren't there?
I was disgusted. We see this with some universities right now, this feeling like with Columbia, this feeling that like, well, if we do what he says, then, then it's over and then we're protected. No, he's going to keep pushing. It's never going to be good enough. And you might not be on the chopping block right now, but guess what? You're next. Maybe not the next time, but the one after that. I am very proud of my former employer, Media Matters. Elon Musk sued them for reporting, and it has been over a year now, like a year and a half, I think, since this whole saga started, and they haven't backed down. And they have a lot less money than some of these universities and some of these organizations do. And I think it's brave to not back down. But it's also self-preservation. This will come for you eventually. And folding is a coward's move. And there's just no way around that. And I get the feeling of, well, like I just don't want to have problems. We're already in the problems.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to not just be remembered as someone who stood up for yourself and others, but do you want to actually do that? Do you want to help yourself down the line? Because once again, this is not just ending with Stephen Colbert. Unless CBS is completely under Trump control, and even then, it's never going to stop.
America is not really designed to handle an authoritarian takeover of the government, is it? I mean, I moved here because it was fun. It was more fun than anywhere else. It's so much fun. They have In-N-Out Burger, and they have kind of stuff that you just can't...
They make really good movies.
They make really good movies, and it's so informal, and nobody wears a suit. It's just the kind of joy and the informality of the US, I think, is why people come here, obviously for the climate, if you find the right state. So there's all of that. But the culture, this kind of informal, popular culture, which I include The Late Show in, which is, of course, a historic show. They didn't just get rid of Stephen Colbert for speaking out against this merger, Paramount and it's all connected with CBS and big deals that Trump needs to ratify. But they cancelled the show. They literally got rid of a piece of American popular culture that goes right back to Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
That is the difference, isn't it? That they actually want to stop people enjoying themselves. They want to get rid of the diversity and the exchange of ideas and just replace everything with a homogenized version of America where there is no kind of Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah, it's one of these things, like, it's not funny at all, but it's also like one of the funniest aspects of all of this, because the far right is fundamentally incapable of being creative, of being a part of pop culture. And no matter how much they try to push it down, it's just not going to work.
Well, they have Lee Green singing "God Bless America."
Oh, that's a really good point. Oh,
there's only so many gigs he can do in a year, I guess.
I used to, I'll probably still watch it this year, but Fox News has their own version of the Academy Awards called the Patriot Awards. And they have a lot of really great awards like Most Valuable Patriot, Patriot of the Year, the Back the Blue Award. In 2022, they gave Pete Hegseth the Most Patriotic Badass Award. And they all get dressed up in black tie, and they talk about how America is their entire identity. But the reality is they just want to be invited to the Oscars.
Yeah. And
they can't get any actual celebrities to come to that. Or if they do, they're ones that like have gone full anti-vax and probably have brain worms. And that's just kind of indicative of where the right's at, like what we see with AI, of people being like, AI is going to replace movies. And then you watch like the movie trailers they make, and it's the most soulless, off-putting shit you've ever seen in your life. Fascism just cannot create culture. And that's what pisses them off the most. I mean, Donald Trump basically ran because he was mad that Obama was cooler than him. Like, that is not an exaggeration. I encourage everyone to watch the White House Correspondents' Dinner where Obama clowns on Trump. He got so mad, you can just see it in his face.
Well, some say that was the moment he decided to run for president.
Right, exactly. And it's like, sorry, you're just never going to be cool. Like I said, fascism is antithetical to the human condition. Like, you can't create when your entire ideology is based on destroying and conserving and only having this one idea of what the world should be like. And I think what you said about how our institutions aren't ready for authoritarianism, I think it's absolutely right. And I think that's kind of like full circle. The issue is the underestimation of the far right. I still hear, like, I talked with my dad sometimes where my dad's like, well, you know, but like we have checks and balances. And I'm like, yeah, but how are those working out? And when Trump bombed Iran, I was talking to some, you know, young men in my district, and they were terrified about a draft. And I never really thought about that, you know, like as a young woman. But like, of course they are. And immediately I had people saying, there hasn't been a draft since Nixon. Like, that's never going to happen. All of this stuff. First off, that doesn't negate their fear. Once again, if you want to be the party that gets young men, maybe talk about this. Maybe be the party against that, because there is a possible chance of war in the next 3 years. But also, like, it makes sense that they're scared of that. And the fact that anyone thinks that Trump wouldn't go that far is just, it's unfathomable in my mind. How many times have we said, well, he can't do that, and then he does it? And it's
but
about
then we normalize
time.
the change, though, don't we?
Right. And like, we have checks and balances, and we've had a relatively strong system in all of this. But guess what? When you have the far right planning for 50 years to overturn Roe, to pack the Supreme Court, to do all of this shit, and then they do it, once again, we are in a different playbook, and we need to stop underestimating him, whether it's people personally, like just random people on the street. If you think ICE is never going to come to your door, reevaluate that. Like, this is early stages, but state violence is on the table for everyone. But especially our leaders, we need to stop underestimating this man, because he will always take it a step further.
He doesn't have empathy for humanity, so therefore, you know, everything is on the table.
And he doesn't like animals. Like, he doesn't like pets.
Yeah.
He hates dogs. What are we doing?
Yeah. It's it's so hard to process because it's huge. It's so huge. I mean, what we're talking about is it's apocalyptic, right?
Yeah.
And people don't really... Isn't it interesting how Americans in this moment are really struggling to get their heads around this, yet they'll pay to go see movies about this stuff that have been made in America time and time again? It's
kind of cathartic. You know, it's like you want that level of distance of like, this isn't happening to me right now. It's happening on the screen. And I think a lot of people subconsciously know that. But like, it's not... All that shit I just said isn't fun to think about. I totally get that. It's stressful to think about. It's scary to think about, but it's real. And, you know, back to ignorance. I get the feeling of wanting to just say, well, it isn't real. I just need to like unplug, and then this won't happen to me.
Yeah.
It will.
What's going to change in the coming months, though, is the economy, because there is no investment in the economy. Because of tariffs kicking in, inflation is already on the rise, and that is what hurts people the most. You know, wages are not growing. The Republicans have no appetite for increasing the minimum wage or any of that stuff. So, and then, of course, there's the issue with immigration and people who pick our fruit and vegetables are in El Salvadorian gulags, and so there will be fewer food items on the shelves. So with less money in your pocket, the cost of living getting higher, and no food to eat, people are going to get a serious wake-up call in the next 6 months to 12 months because, of course, there's always a lag. You know, we're still kind of at the tail end of Joe Biden's economy, or kind of, I guess, midway through, you could argue. So, Trump is going to, he can only blame Democrats for so long, right? How's that going to change things?
Right. That's like what was kind of frustrating about the CR, like the budget bills. Everyone knows that Republicans control everything right now. And so you need to stop worrying about Democratic electability, and not necessarily even Democratic electability, but the fact that your incumbent colleagues will keep their jobs, because this is not about your job security. It's about the American people. And once again, investing in actual material benefit right now. We launched a high school public service grant program for my campaign because I realized that a lot of kids won't be able to find jobs this summer. A lot of summer programs have been cut, and teenagers that don't have anything to do often get into trouble. And so we invite teenagers across the district to apply for this grant program for a community service or mutual aid project they want to do. And we use our campaign resources, our volunteers, our money, materials, whatever they need to help them accomplish that. And it's honestly, a few days for each project for us. But it's everything to that kid. And it's helping them right now, and their projects are helping others too. Think of what we could do with the amount of money that goes into fundraising for the DNC. Just think about that. Think about how many people's lives could be radically improved, or at least
you could set up democratic food banks. I mean, that's
democratic
what I would do.
Food banks, and
I'd call all the food banks the Democrats' food banks. And
right.
So if
and you don't have
eat,
to be a registered Democratic voter.
Of course,
anyone can come.
Anyone can come.
And if you're listening to this and you're one of those people with a lot of money, call me. I'll tell you how we're doing this with our campaign. Like I'm doing it with an average donation at $32. We'd love to scale this up.
There was a shift in New York with this mayoral primary, wasn't there?
It's incredible.
How did that make you feel? And did that kind of inspire you for your own campaign?
I have been following Zoran's campaign for months, like even before my campaign really took off. When he won, I was like, this is a huge night for grassroots progressive candidates with ethnic last names. But
Mamdani is his surname, for those who don't know, yeah.
But I think what really, the two big things that people got from this is, A, their vote can actually matter and that they can be mobilized, and that's fucking awesome. I've believed in our mission, but the amount of people that came up to me in the last few weeks that are like, I don't know, I haven't voted ever in my life, but like I saw what happened in New York and like now I want to. That's awesome because people feel so helpless. But also the amount of institutional backing that went to Cuomo, a man who has harassed and abused women, a man who has mismanaged, is just so corrupt beyond belief.
That exposed the old guard amongst Democrats,
clinging
didn't it? It
to
showed
relevancy.
Who was on which team.
Right. And now you still have people that won't endorse Zoran, which for, the back the blue no matter who crowd.
Yeah.
I think that we should be asking our representatives for more. Like I have said that before, and I've had people get mad at me saying, that's anti-democratic party. And I think it's actually the most pro-democratic thing you can argue for. And Zoran in the last round of ranked choice voting got over half, 56%. It is anti-democratic to not back that nominee, especially when he is trying to fight for concrete change right now. And I think people saw that, and it just kind of lifted the veil. And the fact of the matter is, if you are one of these, old guard Dems that's worried about still being relevant, still having power, back the new kids.
Yeah.
There is nothing that will cement your legacy more than being on the front lines of this.
But it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, David Hogg fell foul of this at the DNC, didn't he? He kind of was trying to bring about change and was pushed back.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people don't really know what the DNC specifically does. And I see both arguments. A very big fan of competitive primaries and think that, Hogg's push is incredibly important. At the same time, I would rather the DNC, as we saw in 2016, not interfere in primaries. But what he was doing was on the right track. And the arguments that were from the perspective that I just mentioned of great idea, maybe possibly, but also maybe not the best format to do this in. I understood those. I did not understand the people that were saying, well, every incumbent is great, or like, we need to be cohesive right now. Not all Democrats are the same. Not every person gets into politics for the right reasons, and not every person should be serving this in their entire life. I have vowed that I will only serve 5 terms max if elected, because I think that we have a fluid, dynamic society, and we need to have a fluid, dynamic Congress to go with it.
We have to finish in a minute, but I want to know from you what America looks like in the future once people are deprogrammed from the cult of Trump, and whatever happens to him. I don't know whether it be a kind of swollen ankle disease or whether the Epstein files will catch up with him, but something that kind of puts him aside. I don't want to get into the subject of J.D. Vance, who undoubtedly would be worse. So that really, I guess, is a real incentive for Democrats and anybody who opposes Donald Trump. Libertarians welcome anybody who really recognizes that a dictatorship is not compatible with the so-called free world that is America. So what does it look like if Democrats are able to kind of rise up and people recognize the threat and everybody comes out to vote and change comes about? How does the future look to you?
It's progressive populist change. By populism, I don't mean nativism. I mean focusing on people. That is what's most important. And it means delivering. It means not catering to corporate interests. It means overturning Citizens United. It means ensuring that we have a Supreme Court that has more justices and rotating justices for each case. It means a binding code of ethics for all of our lawmakers. And it means delivering material change now. It means actually governing, not trying to play 4D politics with everyone that's around you. It means focusing on the people that elected you. I've been thinking a lot about Franklin Delano Roosevelt lately. And there were so many corporate interests that fought against the New Deal and against Social Security. And he said, fuck that. And even when people were being convinced that Social Security would hurt them, he said, you're getting this and you're getting a job. And that is what's important here. We need leaders. We need a president. We need members of Congress. We need activists. We need everyone in their community to have that exact same mindset. I think Zoran, he has that mindset. I think we are going to deliver free buses. We are going to deliver childcare. We are going to deliver city-run grocery stores. There is so much you can do when you're not constantly worrying about the consequences in your own circle. Think about the positive consequences for the people that will benefit. And that is what it looks like. People are a lot more open to being deprogrammed when they're not fighting for their lives. They're a lot more open to voting when they're not fighting for their lives. So let's do it. Let's try to make people's lives better.
The future, there's a lot of things in the way at the moment. I mean, I drove past a fully automated grocery store the other day with literally a robot arm that gives you the item and there's no humans involved. The threat of automation, the threat of climate change, these are things that Republicans don't talk about at all. Do you think it's important to go there and actually for Democrats to start talking about the things that people talk about in Europe all the time? I mean, not a single day goes by when climate change is, where policies for climate change are not on the table and being discussed in a bipartisan fashion. And yet here it's like a swear word.
Absolutely. And we need to make sure that these issues are not discussed in their own silos. Yeah. All of these are tied together. When it comes to fighting climate change, we can provide millions of jobs to update our infrastructure, not just for like woke green energy, but also to deliver cheaper energy costs for Americans, which puts money back in their pockets while also providing jobs. When it comes to, groceries, climate change, having sustainable farming and making sure that small farms are being valued over giant corporate ones, that helps. That helps people in local areas. That helps the farmers themselves. That helps fight the climate disaster that we're hurtling towards. And I'm so tired of, healthcare and groceries and housing and all of this shit, climate change, Social Security, the Gestapo that's coming to our doors, like the secret police that is literally coming to our doors to tear people out of their homes, to attack nannies in parks, while they're all described as one individual thing. And if we just focus on that one thing, all the rest of it doesn't matter. They're all intrinsically tied just as we are.
Yeah. It is. It's the Matrix that we're fighting.
And the Matrix was famously an allegory about the trans filmmakers, about being a trans person, which is always very interesting when people like Elon Musk quote it constantly.
I'm grateful for your expertise on that subject. It's a great place to end. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm so kind of proud of your efforts so far.
Thank you
sure
so
that
much.
Everybody is right behind you. Kat Abughazaleh, thank you for joining the Weekend Show.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone wants to find out more about my platform or donate or volunteer, you can go to catforillinois.com. That's cat with a K.
I'm Anthony Davis. Don't forget to support me and independent journalism at patreon.com/5 Minute News or by joining the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. And I'll come back next Sunday with a brand new special guest and more factual news to discuss on the 5 Minute News Weekend Show with Midas Touch.